Hello again, it's Reverend Chris Taylor here, and today we're going to begin reading from The House at Pooh Corner by A A Milne, with decorations by E H Shepherd. Now, I'm a great fan of A A Milne, as you may well have worked out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the dedication which A A Milne wrote about this book. It's dedicated to his wife, and one of the great things about A A Milne is not only was he a great author of children's stories, he was a great playwright and a great poet, and this was the dedication that he wrote to his wife at the start of The House at Pooh Corner. You gave me Christopher Robin, and then you breathed new life in Pooh. Whatever of each has left my pen goes homing back to you. My book is ready and comes to greet the mother it longs to see. It would be my present to you, my sweet, if it weren't your gift to me. And one wonders if that's Pooh writing the poem, which I doubt. And then below that picture there's this gorgeous picture, and those of you who know the stories of Christopher Robin and Pooh and Piglet will probably work out what they're doing, but more of that another time. And now we come to the contradiction. An introduction is to introduce people, but Christopher Robin and his friends, who have already been introduced to you, are now going to say goodbye, so this is the opposite. When we asked Pooh what the opposite of an introduction was, he said, "The what of a what?" Which didn't help us as much as we had hoped, but luckily Owl kept his head and told us that the opposite of introduction, my dear Pooh, was a contradiction. And as he's very good at long words, I'm sure that's what it is. Why we are having a contradiction is because last week, when Christopher Robin said to me, "What about that story you were going to tell me about what happened to Pooh when," I happened to say very quickly, "What about 9 times 107? And when we'd done that one, we had one about cows going through a gate at 2 a minute, and there are 300 in the field, so how many are left after an hour and a half? We find these very exciting, and when we've been excited quite enough, we curl up and go to sleep, and Pooh, sitting wakeful a little longer on his chair by our pillow, thinks grand thoughts to himself about nothing, until he too closes his eyes and nods his head and follows us on tiptoe into the forest. There, still, we have magic adventures more wonderful than any I've told you about. But now, when we wake up in the morning, they are gone before we can catch hold of them. How did the last one begin? One day when Pooh was walking in the forest, there were 107 cows on a gate. No, you see, we've lost it. It was the best, I think. Well, here are some of the other ones, all that we shall remember now. But, of course, it isn't really goodbye, because the forest will always be there, and anybody who is friendly with bears can find it. A A Milne. Here is a picture of Christopher Robin mountaineering, or climbing a tree anyway. And I think we'll find out what he's doing there later in the book. Chapter 1, in which a house is built at Pooh Corner for Eeyore. One day, when Pooh Bear had nothing else to do, he thought he would do something, so he went round to Piglet's house to see what Piglet was doing. It was still snowing as he stumped over the white forest track, and he expected to find Piglet warming his toes in front of his fire. But to his surprise he saw that the door was open, and the more he looked inside, the more Piglet wasn't there. "He's out," said Pooh sadly. That's what it is. He's not in. I shall have to go a fast-thinking walk by myself. Bother. But first he thought that he would knock very loudly just to make quite sure. And while he waited for Piglet not to answer, he jumped up and down to keep warm. And a hum came suddenly into his head, which seemed to him a good hum, such as is hummed hopefully to others. The more it snows, tiddly-pom, the more it goes, tiddly-pom, the more it goes, tiddly-pom, on snowing. And nobody knows, tiddly-pom, how cold my toes, tiddly-pom, how cold my toes, tiddly-pom, are growing. So what I'll do, said Pooh, is I'll do this. I'll just go home first and see what the time is, and perhaps I'll put a muffler round my neck, and then I'll go and see Eeyore and sing it to him. He hurried back to his own house, and his mind was so busy on the way with the hum that he was getting ready for Eeyore that when he suddenly saw Piglet sitting in his best armchair, he could only stand there rubbing his head and wondering whose house he was in. There's Piglet sitting in Pooh's best armchair. "Hello, Piglet," he said. "I thought you were out." "No," said Piglet. "It's you who were out, Pooh." "So it was," said Pooh. "I knew one of us was." He looked up at his clock, which had stopped at 5 minutes to 11 some weeks ago. "Nearly 11 o'clock, said Pooh happily. "You're just in time for a little smackerel of something." He put his head into the cupboard. "And then we'll go out, Piglet, and sing my song to Eeyore." "Which song, Pooh?" "The one we're going to sing to Eeyore," explained Pooh. The clock was still saying 5 minutes to 11 when Pooh and Piglet set out on their way half an hour later. There they are, in the snow. The wind had dropped, and the snow, tired of rushing round in circles trying to catch itself up, now fluttered gently down until it found a place on which to rest. And sometimes the place was Pooh's nose, and sometimes it wasn't. And in a little while Piglet was wearing a white muffler round his neck, and feeling more snowy behind the ears than he had ever felt before. "Pooh," he said at last, and a little timidly, because he didn't want Pooh to think he was giving in. "I was just wondering, how would it be if we went home now and practised your song and then sang it to Eeyore tomorrow or the next day when we happen to see him?" "That's a very good idea, Piglet," said Pooh. "We'll practice it now as we go along, but it's no good going home to practice it because it's a special outdoor song which has to be sung in the snow." "Are you sure?" asked Piglet anxiously. "Well, you'll see, Piglet, when you listen, because this is how it begins. The more it snows, tiddly-pom." "Tiddly what?" said Piglet. "Pom," said Pooh. "I put that in to make it more hummy." "The more it goes, tiddly-pom, the more—" "Didn't you say snows?" "Yes, but that was before." "Before the tiddly-pom?" "It was a different tiddly-pom," said Pooh, feeling rather muddled now. "I'll sing it to you properly, and then you'll see." So he sang it again. "The more it snows, tiddly-pom, the more it goes, tiddly-pom, the more it goes, tiddly-pom, on snowing. And nobody knows, tiddly-pom, how cold my toes, tiddly-pom, how cold my toes, tiddly-pom, are growing." He sang it like that, which is much the best way of singing it. And when he'd finished, he waited for Piglet to say that of all the outdoor hums for snowy weather he had ever heard, this was the best. And after thinking the matter out carefully, Piglet said, "Pooh," he said solemnly, "it isn't the toes so much as the ears. By this time they were getting near Eeyore's gloomy place, which was where he lived, and as it was still very snowy behind Piglet's ears and he was getting tired of it, they turned into a little pine wood and sat down on the gate which led into it. They were out of the snow now, but it was very cold, and to keep themselves warm they sang Pooh's song right through 6 times, Piglet doing the tiddly-poms and Pooh doing the rest of it, and both of them thumping on the top of the gate with pieces of stick at the proper places. And in a little while they felt much warmer and were able to talk again. "I've been thinking," said Pooh, "and what I've been thinking about is this. I've been thinking about Eeyore." And that is the end of part 1 of chapter 1 of The House at Pooh Corner by A A Milne. Part 2 tomorrow.